Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to find out whether or not I was successful or I totally failed. So as you can see, that's the casting kit that I used from Hobby Lobby. It was marked down from $49.99 down to $19.99. And the biggest concern was whether or not the silicone rubber molds would cure. And Matthew over at Model Car Videos, he had an issue with the silicone rubber curing, and he had to go out and purchase other silicone rubber to make his molds. So stick around and find out whether or not my mold's cured. Alright guys, welcome back. Well, here's my molds. The good news is they did cure, and I was able to mold some parts, cast some parts. The bad news is, as I was removing the parts from the molds, I wrecked the molds. And that's partly my problem. It's my fault entirely. I probably made the molds way too dainty. They're a little bit thin. They were on the thin side. Because I was unsure how much silicone rubber to use and how big to make these molds. Obviously I used cut down cups, and I submerged each piece what I thought was plenty robust to cast these parts. It turns out that wasn't the case. The other thing is there's some things that I have to learn about placement, how to place parts in the molds. So let me show you what I did end up with. Let me move these off to the side. So initially, my thought was, I'm going to cast some parts, and I've been wanting to use this kit and try it out, but I was like, what to cast? And it wasn't until Glenn mentioned drag chutes, and I was like, oh, they're simple enough. I can make some molds, and I can make a bunch of them, you know. It wouldn't take long to cast about 20, 30 drag chutes of all different sizes, right? So that's what I started off with. I started off with these little drag chutes, okay? Now, these are the ones that I cast, okay? And it didn't come out too bad. This one here is just a little bit wonky on the backside. As you can see, it came in a little bit wonky, but I think that could be cleaned up and used anyway. All right. So these are the three originals. Man, this is funky. I'm trying to watch the camera and do this at the same time. Yeah. Alright. So those are the three originals I used. They're just random drag chutes. I think one of them's out of the Cop Out. One of them's out of the Grumpy Jenkins Vega. Maybe two of them are out of the Grumpy Jenkins Vega. I don't recall. But those didn't turn out too bad. Okay, that was the first mold that I made, and it was the first one that I cast. And they released pretty well, and I didn't seem to have too many problems. Those are actually usable, right? With a little bit of cleanup, those are actually usable. I wrecked the mold, obviously, so I'd have to totally make a new silicone mold, and I think I could remedy me tearing up the mold by making it a little bit more robust. The second one I tried to do, and you're all familiar with this, I tried to make this hood scoop. Okay, two pieces. And with this and parts like it, there's a lot for me to learn. All these negative spaces in here have to be filled up, and they can't be filled up with resin. Okay, so this is the bottom, and it didn't turn out too bad, and it's wonky, and I'm going to tell you why it's wonky. I don't think I mixed the resin long enough. I got into a rush, and I had the mold in the microwave. It beeped. I ran and got the mold, and I poured the resin in a cup, and I stirred it up real quick, and then I dumped it. I should have, 25-30 seconds, and then poured the thing. So this one didn't turn out too bad. It's soft. so it's not usable. It also has a lot of air bubbles. Now I did squeeze the mold and try to release the air bubbles. I probably caused more harm than good with that. Cleaned up the bottom side a little bit. It's trash, but for a first go around in a test shot, it's teaching me what to and what not to do. Now the top is a little bit different story. Like I said, negative spaces. So I've got a couple short shots back here, right? I don't know if the air bubbles or not. This totally hardened, okay? But here's what I'm talking about, negative spaces. This has to be taken up by something other than resin. So whether or not I put clay in here, when I make my mold, to keep it a negative space, I'm not sure what I need to do. You guys that cast and have experience in casting, if you'd help me out a little bit, leave some comments down there about how to set this up proper. Do I want to put it in the mold this way and then pour my resin? Do I want to do it this way? How did I do it? I think I did it this way in the mold. And this is why I have that thin spot right here. Because I think I put it in like this. So that way when I poured the resin would have poured like that. Right? That's how all the resin got in underneath. So anyway, like I think this, with some cleanup and stuff, obviously all that stuff is stuck in there, but I don't know. But it's a learning experience, and you don't learn without first doing, right? So you got to take that step, and it's going to be a crawl, walk, run type situation. And now I know to make my molds a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, mix up a little bit more silicone, make them a little bit more robust. I don't know if cups are necessarily the best mold box, but it's what I had available, and I think that's why everybody uses those plastic containers that they do, flat bottoms and such, and everything. And that's also why everybody's molds are so thick, even for tiny parts. And I never figured that out. I was like, why is that mold so huge and you're making a single parachute or a single car? Well, now I know, because when you're trying to remove the piece, you want it robust so you're not busting it up. But yeah, I mean, these are some of the extra resin pieces I had to remove. But and as you can see, some of the silicone stuck to the resin. Now maybe I should have used some talc or baby powder or something in the mold before I poured the resin. I'm not sure what I should have done. Each one of these was heated up. It says heated up for 1 minute per pound. Well, these aren't a pound, but I did heat them up for about 45 seconds, and I took them out, and by the time I poured the resin, they were still warm. And like I said, the air bubbles quickly dissipated from the chutes, right? Didn't have problems. I mean, you got the detail. There's really no air bubbles. This is the back side. This one looks really, really well. With a little bit of cleanup, that could go on a model kit. The second chute, again, it's got plenty of detail on there. With a little cleanup, that could be added to a kit. Right? The third one, it's still usable. Needs some cleanup. But I'm pretty satisfied, being it was my first time doing it. It didn't discourage me. All it did was make me determined that I'm going to cast parts. I'm going to cast these parts, and I'm gonna figure it out. I'm going to figure a system out, and pretty soon I'll be pumping out cast parts left and right. So if you guys are thinking about jumping in to cast some parts, whether it be for your own personal needs on your own kits, or you might want to start a little cottage business, go for it. You know, that's all I can say. It's not as hard as it seems. I mean, there's a little bit of math involved, but that is not difficult either. But then again, That's the industry I come from, chemicals, and I worked in compounding and batch making, so I'm pretty used to mixing chemicals and figuring out ratios and all kinds of different stuff. But there's a lot of ratio calculators and stuff like that on the internet that you can figure out real quickly, so it's not all that bad. Alright guys, that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching.